Come hear the tale of Lord Dion the Bold, whose tamed worms 1,000 unslain but tenfold. 100 full legions the young dragoon led, and watched as 1,000,000 foes turned tail and fled.
Thank you, Spoony Bard. Well, hey everyone, Wandering Bard here, ready to tell you a more complete tale of Lord Dion the Bold, aka Dion Lesage, aka the Prince of Sanbreque, aka...
He has many titles. Dion the Bold, Prince of Dragoons, Odin's Nemesis, or simply Bahamut.
Dion is already a person of interest just for being the dominant of Bahamut, one of the most iconic and powerful summons in Final Fantasy history. But on a personal note, what makes him interesting to me is his conflict surrounding his ideals and his honor. At first, it's a conflict between honor and loyalty when his obligations to his emperor are forcing him to compromise his values. But even when he makes the right choice, he loses everything for it and then has to claw his way back out of despair. And I love how, even throughout all of this, he stays true to his ideals and demonstrates it through his actions. Because to me, that constitutes true honor. Let's take a look.
Forgive me. My family has caused you much grief.
You are not her keeper, Phoenix. This is a matter for the Imperial household now, and as a member of that household, it falls to me to resolve it.
So there's a bit of family history that we have to go through here. Dion is the Prince of Sanbreque, which is the nation that Clive and Joshua's mother, Annabella, sold Rosaria out to. She then married the Emperor, which makes her Dion's stepmother. From the timeline that Joshua lays out later in the story, he and Dion are pretty close in age, so it's unclear whether Dion ever knew his birth mother. Joshua spoke about them meeting at a remembrance ceremony, 2 years before Rosaria fell. So if that ceremony was for Dion's mother, then Dion would have been around 6 years old when his birth mother died. The reason I'm so interested in Dion's mother is that the values that Dion demonstrates in his life are very different from the ones shown by his father and stepmother. Annabella is the type of person to view nobility as something to lord over people, a status to be protected. She shows Dion the same type of contempt that she did Clive, claiming Dion's blood to be impure despite the fact that he is dominant of Bahamut. Emperor Sylvester, meanwhile, acts cold and pragmatic in most scenes that we see him in, although Dion claims that that wasn't always the case. Before Annabella came along, Dion claims that his father was a compassionate ruler, one who looked out for his people, but as time went on, he became colder, focused more on expanding his own power rather than protecting his subjects. And he himself credits Annabella with reminding him of truths about the nature of rulers. So in other words, Annabella has the Emperor wrapped around her finger. Which means that Annabella's scorn towards Dion was probably the best thing that could have happened to him, because without his traitorous stepmother whispering in his ear, Dion built his life and character around the values that he presumably received from his birth mother and from Sylvester before he forgot himself. He embraced his role as Bahamut's dominant to be a champion of the people, to give them hope and protect them. In fact, in the very first scene that we see him in, he's serving in that capacity on the battlefield, going toe-to-toe with King Barnabas, the dominant of Odin. But we don't get to meet him properly until after the game's second time skip.
At ease. We stand in the presence of the Phoenix.
So while Clive is busy destroying the Drake's Breath Mother Crystal, Joshua is in the Dominion trying to find Dion. They have met before, as I said, when they were children, and that meeting, combined with what he's picked up since, made a significant enough impact on Joshua that he believes Dion will have also noticed Ultima's growing influence, and that Dion could be the ally they need to stop him. Which is especially powerful when we remember that, as the former Prince of Rosaria, Joshua would have every reason to resent Dion for his ties to Sanbreque. But he judges Dion to be a man of honor, and the best part is that, when we do properly meet Dion, he is exactly what Joshua believed him to be. Well, mostly. Turns out he doesn't know anything about Ultima, but he is very much a man of honor, and he does take Joshua seriously. Even before they meet, he isn't blind to the growing darkness in Sanbreque. By this point, his stepbrother Olivier, who by the way shows literally no agency in every scene we see him in, has been made emperor. Sylvester is asking Dion to put civilians in the line of fire to defeat the Dalmex, and he can see Annabella's manipulative hand in all of this. So when Joshua tells him about Ultima, a lot falls into place. I think that he wanted to believe that his father was bewitched, that Ultima was influencing him, and what's heartbreaking for him is that this isn't the case. We, the player, do have a hint at this point that Annabella is under Ultima's influence, and given that Olivier himself is later revealed to be a form of Ultima, that makes a lot of sense, but Sylvester is very much speaking his own mind. He just happens to be wrapped around his wife's finger. She later admits privately to Dion that she did turn both his father and the rest of the court astrologers against him, and that she spread false rumors that Dion was planning an insurrection. So now Dion is torn. On the one hand, he has an obligation to his people to protect them from the Dalmex. He also has the oaths that he swore to his nation, to his emperor, which compel him to obey his orders. But in his heart, he can't abide by the actions he's being told to take. And even though he believes his father is not under Ultima's spell, he can't see how what's happening in Sanbreque fits right into Ultima's plans. So he has a choice to make.
Terence.
My prince.
Tell me true. Do you believe what I'm about to do is wrong?
And I don't think that him asking for help or for reassurance negates what he's about to do. He's about to go against everything he's ever known, against his nation, against his own family. And even though he believes in his heart that he's right, it's still frightening to take that leap of faith. We see an example of this when he later confronts his father, because he isn't the only one who's noticed how bad things are. The guards refuse to act one way or the other, and the council members and generals all stare at their feet when Dion appeals to them. They've all seen how bad things have become, but they're not willing to act on it, to stand up. And where Dion shows true integrity, even as he commits high treason against his emperor, is when he says, no, I'm not being passive, I'm not standing on the sidelines, I'm going to stand up for what's right. And that's true honor.
This is my decree. For their crimes against the crown, the traitorous Annabella and her usurping son shall be put to death, and the empire restored.
But in the very next scene that we, the players, see him in, before we watch him confront his father, is not as a triumphant hero, but as a rampaging Bahamut destroying the city. It's not until a little while later that we learn what went wrong. At first, things went great. The Imperial Dragoons answer to him and him alone, and they're cut above the rank and file. He also gave strict orders for the civilians to be evacuated so they'd be out of harm's way. While they secured the city, Dion went to his family. Between this scene and the one that we get during the same chapter when Clive confronts his mother, we get arguably the most powerful character moments in the game. I don't think I can do this justice in a post-commentary, so I'll show as much of it as I can.
Father, though you may not see it, the darkness has taken hold of you. It has made you forget yourself. But I bid you remember, there was a time when you ruled not with cruelty, but with compassion. Why now do you turn your back on your people? Why now do you seek to stoke the fires of war? You too have borne witness to this change, your eminences.
So again, Dion's trying to appeal to the people around him, and they all stare at their shoes. Even though they agree with him, they're not willing to stand up for what's right.
For every citizen who falls, another can be bred. For every home that burns, another can be built. Those were your words. But when the last of your citizens has fallen, and all of their homes have been reduced to ash, what will become of your empire, of its rulers, of your god?
Dion, you must understand.
A small price to pay, is it not?
Here we go.
You've been blessed with great power, Dion. Enough to win me the world. So go, claim Valisthea for me, brother.
Yeah, so that happened. And then Olivier doubles down, reveals himself to be a form of Ultima, and his influence, combined with Dion's guilt over what happened, drives him to madness, causes him to lose control of his power, and he transforms into Bahamut. We, the player, don't know any of this at this point, but we know that something went wrong, and that the most powerful icon in the world is now out of control and destroying the Dominion. And after drinking in ether from the Mother Crystal, he quite literally becomes powerful enough to destroy the whole planet. It takes Joshua and Clive fusing their powers and bodies together to bring him down, which they thankfully do without killing him. But the destruction that he wrought was massive, and while the brothers and Jill have their reunion, Dion sees the lurking shadow of Ultima behind his stepmother and gathers the last of his strength.
This is for my father! It is done. The demon that would tear our house apart is no more. Father.
Had I but reached out to him sooner, warned him of the threat Ultima posed. But now, both an empire and her prince lie broken.
After all of this, Dion slips into a coma, and it takes him a very long time to recover, even with Taria watching over him. When he does finally wake up, which sadly happens while Clive is out on a mission, he just up and leaves despite being not anywhere close to healed. He goes back to the Dominion, where he sees both the destruction that he wrought as Bahamut and the pall of hopelessness cast by Ultima's Primogenesis spell. This part, for me, is why I chose to make a character analysis for Dion, and there's two reasons for that. For one thing, while his previous struggles were really interesting, in fact they're one of my favorite types of character struggles in story, the really compelling part is what happens after, because he's at rock bottom right now. He did the right thing, he stuck by his ideals, and yet because of that, his father died, he fell under Ultima's control, and his people are now suffering. And what's worse is that everything that happened, his family falling to Ultima, the growing darkness and warmongering in Sanbreque, he's not responsible for it, but it all happened because of him. Ultima, as Olivier, revealed that he manipulated everything for exactly this moment, when Dion tried to kill Olivier, and when Sylvester sacrificed himself instead. All of it was meant to break Dion, and it worked. And Dion would have every reason to give in to despair or to bitterness. But he does neither. He drags himself back to his people to see what happened, and he tries to help. Except, he really should have waited until he was properly healed, because he collapses immediately when he reaches the Dominion. Which leads to the other reason why I love this part of the game, which is the fact that they took this random freaking medicine girl who has popped up at various points throughout the game, and they actually made her matter to the plot. Like, look at this.
What have I done?
You weren't in control of yourself. Wait, medicine girl, are you finally going to contribute to the plot? Is this medicine... this freaking medicine girl is finally going to do something? Okay, he's been bandaged. Or he already had those, didn't he? He seems better.
What is this place?
Medicine girl carried him here. She achieved something for the plot, everyone!
Don't move.
I think that this was really important for Dion for way more than just his physical recovery. I think he needed this for his strength of spirit. Like, look at the look on his face when he wakes up to this girl looking after him. It's been a long time since he's been shown unconditional love and goodness. His father's heart grew cold, his stepmother and Olivier both sucked, and everyone else around him wasn't willing to stand up for what was right. I think the fact that this girl, her name was Kiel by the way, just dropped everything and looked after him, with nothing in it for her, was good for him. He needed a reminder that there was still good in the world worth fighting for. And with his wounds healed and his spirit renewed, he gathers what troops he can and starts trying to defend what's left of civilization. And this time, he's not asking, what do people expect of me or what am I obligated to do? He asks, what needs to be done and where can I do the most good? And at first that means rallying the Dragoons, saving the free cities, since that's something that only he could do. But he knows that where he's needed most was fighting Ultima. So he gets the Dragoons where they were needed, he sends his attendant/lover Terrence to look after Kiel, and then he goes to Ash to fight Ultima alongside Clive and Joshua.
Ifrit, your brother mentioned that some few of the dominants who had lost their power to you were still able to prime. Is that true?
It is. But their icons no longer submitted to their will.
Then mine will have to be stronger.
What happens next is something that I have mixed feelings about. In order to help Clive and Joshua reach Ultima Sky Fortress, Dion transforms into Bahamut, hoping his will would be strong enough to maintain control so Clive and Joshua could save their strength. But Clive says afterward that it feels like Dion thinks he once survived the battle, and that he's made peace with that fact. And sadly it proves correct, Dion does die during the battle, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. Narratively, it raises the stakes and sets up Clive for a one-on-one showdown with Ultima when Joshua also dies soon after, but they didn't have to kill Dion to do that, they could have done that by just knocking him unconscious. Thematically, it also feels contrary to Dion's arc of picking himself up from rock bottom and regaining his spirit for him to so readily accept death. And I think Dion is wrong to say that he has nothing left for him but regret. He has Terrence and he has Kiel waiting for a safe return. But on the other hand, in Dion's words, his life ended in the Dominion. His whole family died there, his nation basically died there too, and he carries responsibility for all of that. And I think that in Dion's mind, his affairs were in order. The Empire is no more, Kiel is looked after, the only debt that he has left is to Joshua. And so I think he sees this as both him repaying that debt and as one more way where he could still do some good. He was ready to die. I'm not sure I like it, and it ends his arc in a weird space, but it does make some sense. I think one thing that remains constant for Dion, and maybe could have been changed to add another layer to his arc, was that he never allowed himself personal happiness. He spent his entire life living for other people, and I think that part of why he was ready to die was that once he felt that his obligations to other people were attended to, he felt kind of lost. If he had been given an arc where he learned that it was okay to allow himself some rest and some personal happiness, he could have ended in a much healthier place, maybe enjoying a quiet life with Terrence and Kiel. And he still could have done more for the people around him while enjoying that kind of life. Instead, he let himself die to help Clive, which was noble, but I do wish they could have given him a happier ending. At the very least, the last thing he saw was Ultima being blasted by Mega Flare, so he went out believing that he had done what he came for, and that the world would be safe. That's gonna have to be enough, I suppose. And thus ends the tale of Lord Dion the Bold. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I really appreciate y'all taking the time to watch this video. Let me know down in the comments what you think of Dion, or what a happier ending for him could have been like if he'd been allowed one. And as always, please consider liking the video if you enjoyed, subbing to the channel to see more content, and joining the Discord if you want to talk more about gaming and characters. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one.